According to the Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe, or CTMU, reality is tied together by the primary identity, the global operator descriptor, or G.O.D, unfolding within itself through sub-identities. Reality is everywhere maintained through the G.O.D as a triadic monad, identifying itself as the self-defined good unfolding within it. The CTMU presents itself as reality talking to itself about itself under God. What is the language of God? First of all, what is the topic of the language of God? What is it talking about? The language of God needs a basic theory of what is the reality supporting its interpretation, and so a basic definition of reality. In the CTMU, reality is not a reduction of the perceived reality to a subfunctional aspect of reality. The CTMU embraces cognition with its full scope and cognitive domains. As such, in the CTMU, God is not a mathematician with equations or formulas writing the world through logico-mathematic syntax or LMS. God is neither a poet writing the world through its emotetic syntax or ETS. God is not again a master of events, a producer of space-time object syntax or STOS. Nor God is a painter admiring the beauty of his Cognitive-Perceptual syntax, or QPS. Langen does not constrain one cognitive domain to be the illusion of another or the representation of the other, like many other philosophies. Rather, all these aspects of reality, comprising the human cognitive perceptual syntax, or HCS, have causal structure within a broader embedding reality medium. According to the CTMU, reality is made of the most general algebra embedding the various aspects of reality. Through the principle of linguistic reducibility, every cognitive domain, whether logico-mathematic, emotelic, related to space-time object, or qualio-perceptual, is reduced to a more general linguistic form, connecting them with each other. What makes language the most generic algebra? Since all scientific theories are expressed through language, and since all perceptions about reality are captured through language, then language is the most general algebra able to capture reality as it is known and perceived. In fact, the CTMU, in its search for the global medium of reality, attributes to language proto-computational capacity, making a unique kind of language, supporting its own emergence, unfolding, and configuration. The SCSPL, or self-configuring self-processing language, is the theory and universe of the theoretical aspect of reality. According to the CTMU, reality takes the form of a super-language called the SCSPL. The language of God is then SCSPL, i.e., reality itself, and it is describing reality understood as a proto-computational algebra or self-simulation. The aspects, properties, and content of this self-simulating, self-configuring, self-processing language is the topic of this reflective language of God. Second, what makes the CTMU the language of God? In order to be the language of God, the CTMU relies on no external background. The CTMU grants the universe a full scope of operations, laws, compositions, interpretations, all without any recourse to something that just is what it is. It does so by outlining mechanisms by which the universe achieves syntactic closure, syntactic coherence and consistency, and syntactic comprehensivity-reflexivity. Syntactic closure, also called MAP as in metaphysical ontology principle, asserts that reality is configured so as to describe, define, attribute, rule, interpret, or explain reality inside of reality. The reality principle, or the self-containment of reality within itself, applies to a range of operations within reality, making reality self-contained and self-referential for all theoretical purposes. This makes the scope of the CTMU investigation universal. Any concept outside of the language of the CTMU becomes irrelevant and unconnected to the network of definitions or perception of reality. The syntactic closure opens the door to unexplained parts of reality, but no critical gap. Any process showing broad applicability within reality will be included in the closed descriptive manifold of linked definitions of reality. The syntactic closure is at the human level the seed of the quest for knowledge by shaping reality as something to be explained within reality. At the God level, the syntactic closure reflects God's self-identification with himself through reality. Next is the syntactic comprehensivity-reflexivity, also called the mind equals reality principle, M equals R. It asserts that mind and reality are supported by a relational medium enabling both, because they share process and structure. Recognizing this, the CTMU quantizes reality by that medium called infocognition, which we can understand as both information being processed by cognition and cognition processing information. M equals R makes all of reality an aspect of a mental medium, but also grounds the mental medium as an emerging aspect of an informational reality. With M equals R, the closed descriptive manifold displays some general consciousness. The eyes looking outside the manifold are infocognition nucleated by a teller, creatively binding new syntax to look at within the generative manifold of reality. At the human level, M equals R grounds the human mental life within the core structure of reality by universally distributing the coupling of ontology and epistemology. At the God level, M equals R provides God with generalized consciousness, subsuming the human cognitive syntax, and more broadly, all accepting and transducing syntax of the universe. Next is syntactic coherence and consistency, or the multiplex unity principle MU, a seed that enables a coherent system to run with parts within it. Through ology, the global syntax is everywhere distributed within the content of the universe as accepting and transducive syntax. The content of the universe is topologically included within this encompassing syntax, while the global syntax is contained by the content insofar as the universe opportunistically recognizes and transforms the medium based on the content stored within the parts. The history of the parts generate new syntax, leading evolution from the future to the past, conditioned based on the history of the parts. The bidirectional containment between unity and multiplicity is the core of the MU, or multiplex unity principle. It provides the universe with a medium that ultimately allows parallel causal streams of infocognition configured within the global unifying syntax. The distributed global syntax ensures the consistency and coherence of the multi-stream system, while the multi-stream system provides a distributed basis of global system evolution toward the initial and ultimate self-identifying impetus of the global syntax. At the human level, MU connects humans to the global syntax by projecting it inside themselves. It enables participatory shaping of the reality through the content injecting itself in global syntax. At the God level, MU places God everywhere within the universe with a self-refinement of his identity through sub-identities coherently evolving according to his global syntax granted to sub-identities. Through map M equals R and MU, the CTMU describes the language of reality at the level where reality maintains its own medium, supports its own evolution, and distributes everywhere inside its content. Thanks to these principles, nothing is left to external explanation or just to what it is, which places the CTMU at a level of discourse where general insight about reality and God is possible. Finally, the CTMU is the language of God because it is embedded within Telic Recursion, a process by which meaning is self-created through a closed self-determinative loop. Since there is no structure on which ultimate reality can extract meaning, each real system must ultimately be grounded on a medium that exhibits self-determinism. Unbounded telesis is the primordial ontic realm of the CTMU by which the G.O.D extracts meaning through the distributed process of conspansion. In the CTMU, the omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent G.O.D creates itself by means of an atemporal process distributing towards the local vantage point and retroactively maximizing the universe utility as emerging through the combination of the primary and secondary tellers. From an anthropologic perspective, as we human beings create our both inherited and generative self-utility functions, God may have brought himself to his perfection by being the grace and salvation of the just that align their utility to the G.O.D Telic Recursion process that brought about the creation of human beings. The CTMU, by mapping the Telic Recursion to the distributed G.O.D, seems to allow us to ask ourselves, what if the story of this world was the story of us?